time period of the 1950s and 1960s for African Americans was a time of injustice and violence. It was a period of history that lacked peace or justice and desperately needed a leader to change the hostile atmosphere of the time. A leader that could make people understand that everyone deserves equal rights, no matter the color of their skin. That leader was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Martin Luther King's raised in Atlanta, a little bit more of an enlightened city, and his first church, his first assignment at the age of 26, happened to be in Montgomery, Alabama.
All in favor, let it be known by standing on your feet.
Right at the outset of the bus situation, the bus boycott, which was an effort of the African American community of Montgomery to address the persecution in one of the most segregated states in the country.
That was the day that we started a bus protest which literally electrified the nation.
Martin Luther King happened to be there and became involved in that boycott movement, and in fact became selected as its leader.
Let's be sure that our hands are clean in the struggle. Let us never fight with falsehood and violence and hate and malice, but always fight with love, so that when the day comes that the walls of segregation is completely crumbled in Montgomery, we will be able to live with people as our brothers.
Martin Luther King devoted his life to creating peace even in the most dysfunctional of times. His call to lead was much needed in a time when African Americans were denied the right to vote, abused and were victims of violence, and were discriminated against in everyday activities like walking in the park or drinking from a water fountain.
I feel that nonviolence, organized nonviolent resistance is the most powerful weapon that oppressed people can use in breaking loose from the bondage of oppression. Now,
when the glory comes, it will be ours, it will be ours. Oh, one day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. Oh, glory, 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 oh, glory, glory, oh.
but somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for right.
Martin Luther King not only was a pivotal figure for the civil rights movement, but he was a shining beacon in his actions of nonviolence, how he held many peaceful protests of just marches throughout the streets to bring awareness to the situation in our society at the time.
I think Martin Luther King Jr. saw all people as children of God. He was a Protestant minister. He was a man of God.
He accepted anyone coming to help the civil rights movement, whether they were white, whether they were Hispanic. It didn't matter which race or which religion, because there were multiple other religions helping along with the civil rights movement for equality.
If the Negro is to be free, he must move down into the inner resources of his own soul and sign with a pen and ink of self-assertive manhood his own Emancipation Proclamation.
Dr. King experienced brutal opposition from police forces, civil rights opponents, and white supremacist groups. Even during all of this, King led in a nonviolent way, through protests, boycotts, and most effective of all, his speech.
He had to use speech and he had to use powerful words to propel the people forward into action and to not have them want to go towards that side of violence, which would then just keep that movement down, the civil rights movement down.
His background as a preacher obviously gave him the ability to speak in front of crowds. And so we know his words today because of his ability to articulate and to reach the most peaceful side of society.
How long? Not long. Yes, sir. Because no lie can live forever. Yes, sir. How long? Not long. How long? Because you shall reap what you sow. Yes, sir. How long?
The words of Martin Luther King and his ability to speak empowered the civil rights movement. There was no need to use violence. Dr. King proved the idea that the pen truly is mightier than the sword.
His actions actually not only inspire me today, but they've been inspiring me since I was a kid.
Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop.
I try to carry my life every day where I accept everyone. It doesn't matter which race or which religion or, whether you're, male or female. Everybody's all the same and a part of this human race.
Martin Luther King's devotion to progressive civil rights reform for all Americans burdened by the chains of segregation or injustice changed the lives of millions. Dr. King's dream to end segregation and lead through nonviolent protest inspired millions to continue spreading his words and live out his actions, to truly make his dream become a reality.
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah.